Hi, this is Lou, welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make a half drop repeat pattern by hand. And I'll be demonstrating it by creating a repeat pattern of the cherry blossom flowers I've been painting this week. So a few years ago I learned a trick for making repeating patterns, and I've used it a few times in the screen printing that I've done to screen print on fabric. But I'd never tried a half drop repeat pattern before now. So I've been experimenting with that, and I'm going to take you through my process for doing it. In my last video I took you through the process of painting these particular cherry blossoms, but making a repeat pattern is something that you can do with a lot of different mediums. It doesn't need to be painting, it can be all sorts of different things. And quite often these days the repeat pattern process is done in Photoshop, it's all done digitally. But I like the idea that you can still do these things by hand in the traditional way. So that's what I'm going to show you today. Of course, to get a perfect pattern, it does need a little tidying up in Photoshop afterwards. I'm not going to go into detail on that part of the process because I've already made a video on that a little while back, and I'm going to put a link to that here and in the description box. So before I go in with my watercolour paper, I thought I'd show you an example on just some small bits of card, really simple, and I'll show you the difference between a full drop repeat and a half drop repeat. So first of all, to make a repeating pattern, you start with a design, and you start by drawing the centre of the design. So whatever it is that you're doing, let's do some big leaves on here, maybe a stem of leaves like this, maybe another one there, maybe another one there. Okay, so I want this pattern to repeat, so how do I do that? Well, you can see that I've marked a cross on here in pencil, and normally I do this on the back, but I've done it on the front so you can see. I've got a knife and a ruler, and I'm going to cut down the centre lines both directions. It's important that you get the cut as accurately and straight as possible. Any deviation from this line, if this line's not quite in the centre, it's going to show on the final design. So for a full drop repeat pattern, what we do is we take the two top pieces and we move them to the bottom, and we take the two right hand pieces and move them to the left. What you're left with is all the pattern is now on the edge, and there's a nice gap in the middle. In order to make sure this is nice and neat, if I tape all these pieces together, making sure this cross is right in the centre, let's do that on the back. So a piece of tape on the back will hold it together, and now I can draw the rest of the pattern, whatever I want, in the centre here. Again, making sure not to go up to the edges. So I can continue this line here. I can draw a leaf off this way, maybe like that. I can draw maybe another branch there and another leaf that way, like that. And yeah, I think that's it. That's a full drop repeat. And I can show you how it looks with this pattern of strawberries. So here's the card that I've made that's taped on the back, that's been kind of done in this way with these little strawberries on it. And this strawberry here will match up with this strawberry here. And then on the repeat you can see that, can I see that? You can see that these strawberries here are these ones where there was half on one and half on the other. If you look at a full drop repeat, you can quite often see patterns of squares like this. So you can pick out one element and then you can see it repeated in a square shape like that. In order to disguise that repeat, you can use other repeating methods, and a half drop repeat helps you disguise that, and it kind of stops this pattern of squares forming. You still do get repeating patterns on the page, but they will look slightly different. But those kind of really obvious squares don't jump out at you quite as much. And here's how this pattern that we just made looks when it's repeated, and I've used Photoshop to do this. For a half drop repeat pattern, I'm starting in the same way. So again, let's draw a stem, maybe some leaves on it. Okay, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut vertically down this centre line. And then I'm going to turn around and cut them in half again. So far this is exactly the same as the process for the full drop repeat. So now I can take my two from the right and move them to the left. But this time I'm only going to switch one half around. So now what's coming off here will be coming halfway up this side, and what's coming in this side will be going off halfway up that side. Again, I'll flip these over and just attach them with a little bit of tape. And then I can continue drawing my pattern. So let's join this stem back onto that one. I'm going to add in a new stem up here and fill in that area there with a leaf. There we go. Let's put one in there. So now if you're happy with your pattern, then that's it. You don't need to do any more. If you want to put in something here that's going to repeat up here, you need to flip these two around. So let's move that around there. Let's see if I can hold it together. And yeah, let's just put in a leaf here that's just going to cross that there. So now we've got a pattern where the bottom repeats to the top, the bottom repeats to the top, the left side repeats halfway up the right side, and the right side repeats halfway down the left side. And the top left side repeats halfway down the right side. So when we repeat this pattern, I've got some blank squares here. This pattern would repeat there, and there, and above and below, like this. And here are what these green leaves look like once you've repeated them in that half drop pattern. And you should see that the square patterns that you get in full drop repeats are less obvious in this one. I've included a link down below to a video that I found really helpful in working out how to get Photoshop to show you what this pattern looks like. So here's an example of one I made earlier with the cherry blossom design. So you can see that the pattern repeats from here, goes down the page, and then repeats here. So this flower and this flower are the same flower. And then the same here, this flower and this flower are the same flower. And then this one, this doesn't repeat on this edge at all, so it's nice and clear. So that's one step I didn't have to do. But I've just got the top of a little bud there, and then the bottom of it is down here. And the same, I've got a little leaf here, but the rest of it is up there. And I'm just going to put a clip on the screen now of what this pattern looks like once it's been repeated. So I've done this in Photoshop, and all I did was scan it in, and then I cleaned it up by just using the erase tool to remove the cut lines and the clone tool to smooth out the areas where there's a bit of a repeat. And I've got a video on my channel that goes into that in a little bit more detail, and there'll be a link for that below. So this is the cherry blossom design that I was working on in my last video. So I'm going to take this off the block so I can move on to the next stage of creating the half drop repeat. So to start with, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to roughly trace out in pencil very lightly where I think my elements might go and where they might repeat. So I've got a stem that's kind of coming through the plant like this, and my idea is that it might go off this edge here and then come back out up here, and that would be okay. I think I've got a bit of empty space up here, so I think maybe I should put in another flower, and maybe this flower might kind of go off the edge of the page. Maybe actually 2 flowers, that could be good. So maybe there's like half a flower there, the rest of it would be down here somewhere. And these aren't exact, so I'm just sketching them in very lightly. And then maybe there's another like bit of a flower there. And then they would join onto that stem there. And then there'd probably be maybe some leaves out this way. And maybe some buds down here, like that. So this is very rough. It's just to give me an idea of how the composition might look, and I can refine these later once I've done my cutting and sticking. So for my first cut, I'm going to cut vertically down here. And then I think that I'm not going to want this pattern to go over this line here or this line here. So I'm just going to cut this one in half. So they went there. So now I can flip these two pieces over like this. And now I've got all of this nice blank white space, and I can see that where I've drawn my kind of possible flowers that I was going to put in, the edges really don't line up very well, but they line up well enough that I can see that this part of the flower here that I drew kind of will match with that bit. There's a couple of leaves there. Yeah, this stem here doesn't really line up all that well, but well enough. I can see that my leaf that I drew here is going to be difficult to put in, so let's take that out. And instead I could put some leaves up this way. Maybe one there, like that. So now I can kind of tape these back together, and I'm going to be a little bit more careful to really get these lines nice and straight and get the joins as minimal as I can, because the smaller the joins are, the easier the process of kind of cleaning up in Photoshop will be. Now, if you want to know the details of how I'm painting each flower and leaf, I'm going to direct you to my last video where I went into detail about all of the shapes and the colours and pigments and everything that I'm using. So I'm going to speed through this today, and I'm just going to continue painting this design, and then I'll show you what happens when it's all finished. So now I've completely finished painting my cherry blossoms. And what I'm left with is this just a square piece of paper with these random marks in it where it's been cut. And it's going to take a little bit of work to get this cleaned up. Like I mentioned earlier, I've already made a video on that, so I'll link that below. And then here is a little preview of what that pattern looks like once you've removed those cut marks. You might notice a few faint lines in there because I haven't quite 100% tidied this up, but I thought it was near enough to show you. I can also show you versions with different coloured backgrounds, and you can change the hue and the tone of the flowers that you've painted too. So you've got lots of options for working with this digitally. But for this video I wanted to show you that simple kind of hand painted process for making repeat patterns. I hope that you'll find it helpful, and I hope that if you give it a go that you'll enjoy the process. And if you'd like a little bit more information on other parts of the process that I haven't gone into such detail here, then do let me know and I will try and make future videos about those. So thank you very much for watching. If you'd like the video then please give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more from me then do subscribe to the channel. I'm currently producing a whole range of videos all about patterns and pattern making. And I really hope to see you again very soon. Thanks very much. Bye bye.